Declaro abierta la sesión número 9513 del Consejo de Seguridad.
And search operations. In Tulkarem, there were extensive infrastructure damage from IDF bulldozers. The delivery of humanitarian aid in the Strip continues to face nearly insurmountable challenges. Amid displacement of an unimaginable scale and active hostilities, the humanitarian response system is on the brink. Limited steps by Israel, including allowing entry of more fuel, food and cooking gas, and opening Kerem Shalom, Karem Abu Salem crossing for the entry of humanitarian supplies are positive, but fall short of what is needed to address the human catastrophe on the ground. In Jenin refugee camp and in Tulkarem, respectively. The magnitude of hostilities between Israel and Hamas and the scope of death and destruction in Gaza have been unprecedented and unbearable to witness. I unequivocally condemn the killing of civilians in Gaza, including women and children. I mourn the loss of every civilian, including 131 UN colleagues, the single largest loss of life in the history of the organization. Operations including exchange of fire with armed Palestinians. I'm also deeply concerned by escalating tensions in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Intensified armed exchanges between Palestinians and Israeli security forces, predominantly in the context of Israeli operations, have led to exceedingly high levels of fatalities and arrests.
Under Resolution 50. This truce was to be supervised by a UN mediator assisted by a group of military observers that would become known as United Nations Truce Supervision Organization, the first. On the operational level, from 8 October, many ceasefire violations have occurred across the blue line between Israel and Lebanon, and then on the Golan between Israel and the Syrian Arab Republic. UNSO's military observer, who constitute Observe Group Lebanon, OGL, and Observe Group Golan, OGG, under the operational control of the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, and the UN Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, respectively, took appropriate and adapted security measures.
Tiene la palabra el representante de Estados Unidos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Special Coordinator Venzlin and Head of Mission. And that ultimately, we must all work towards a two-state solution, which serves as the only foundation for a truly sustainable peace. Of course, as Special Coordinator Venzlin highlighted, the events that have unfolded in the West Bank over the last year have moved us farther away from that reality. That includes the ongoing construction of settlements in the West Bank, which undermines the possibility of a Palestinian state. And it includes a sharp and alarming uptick in settler violence, especially because even before Hamas's attack on October 7, 2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinians in the West Bank since 2005. Israeli officials must not fan the flames of this violence with incendiary, dehumanizing rhetoric, because we have seen the ways in which words have consequences, not only in the West Bank, but around the world. Over the past 2 months, we have witnessed a spike in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, both online and in our communities, including in our own backyard here in New York City, where just a few blocks north, a halal food vendor faced vile, bigoted harassment. Where just over the river in Brooklyn, a Jewish man was brutally beaten in front of his family's home. Rhetoric matters, and we must do more to prevent this dangerous dehumanization. A few things bear reiterating: that the atrocities Hamas committed on October 7 must be condemned, that we must pursue justice for the victims of horrific sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas on and after that day, that Israelis still face barrages of rocket fire to this day, rocket fire launched by Hamas from civilian infrastructure in Gaza at civilians in Israel. That civilians must be protected, and that humanitarian aid must reach those who desperately need it. That Hamas must not be allowed to control Gaza for the sake of Israeli and Palestinian safety alike, and that Israel has the right to protect its people from terrorism.
Agradezco al general de división Goshat por informar. Agradezco al representante de Estados Unidos.
We are engaging constructively with our colleagues on the Security Council to resolve outstanding issues related to that resolution. We fully support addressing the humanitarian needs of the people of Gaza, as this resolution should set out to do, and we're working through these issues with other countries on the Security Council. It very much does depend on the content, but we've supported a UN Security Council resolution on this conflict in the past. We would welcome a resolution that fully supports addressing the humanitarian needs of the people in Gaza. But as I said, and as you referred to in your question, the details of it very much do matter.
Has Israel asked the U.S. to veto this?
We have been in discussions with them about it, as we were in discussions with other countries in the region, but I don't want to get into the content of those discussions. Ultimately, we'll make our own determination about what the best course of action is, and it will depend very much on what the final text of the resolution states.
Agradezco al representante de Estados Unidos.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are now coming to the end of what was the deadliest year in the occupied Palestinian territory. This should be a wake-up call that the current status quo cannot be allowed to continue. 2.2 million people remain trapped, with 9 out of every 10 spending entire days without food. Gazans are experiencing unprecedented levels of starvation and thirst, while doctors lack even the most basic of medical supplies to treat the wounded and the growing threat of infection. What we need is access. The resolution that we will vote on later today aims to meet this need by demanding the use of all land, sea, and air routes to allow aid to enter. Israel must stop blocking the entry of aid and allow life-saving assistance into the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, less than 100 kilometers away from Gaza, people in the West Bank are living in a situation of violence and fear that has escalated over the past 2 months. Since 7 October, the number of people killed in the West Bank has increased. 278 Palestinians, including 70 children, have lost their lives. This is more than half of the total number since the beginning of the year, in a year that was already witnessing unprecedented levels of violence. Just because those with extremist voices shout the loudest does not mean that they should decide the fate of the region.
Tiene ahora la palabra el representante de la Federación Rusa. Agradezco al representante de Mozambique.
Thank you, President. A humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding in Gaza. We are banning those responsible for settler violence from entering the UK to make sure our country cannot be a home for people who commit these intimidating acts. And we reiterate our call on Israel to immediately and completely stop all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory.
Representante de China. La representante de Ghana por su declaración.
Je remercie Thor Wensland ainsi que le général Gauchat de leurs exposés. Monsieur le Française des Affaires étrangères a réaffirmé la solidarité de notre pays avec le peuple israélien, notre attachement à sa sécurité. Je rappelle notre condamnation la plus ferme des violences sexuelles et sexistes qui ont été perpétrées par le Hamas le 7 octobre. Nous appelons à une nouvelle trêve humanitaire immédiate, durable, qui doit conduire à un cessez-le-feu pérenne afin d'obtenir la libération de tous les otages encore détenus par le Hamas et d'apporter à la population de Gaza l'aide dont elle a besoin en urgence.
Remarks. On October 7th, as this may be the last meeting for my country as member of the Council on this issue, just like we have said and repeated in every one of them, we look forward to the moment when the two-state solution is advanced, not like an empty mantra, not as an easy substitute to failure, not as a placebo, but as a genuine process so that the Israelis and Palestinians find the way to get out of the horrible deadlock, of the terrible impasse and the perpetual failures over decades, and together with the international community, design, agree, and implement to live side by side, each in their own state, in dignity, prosperity, and security, free from terror and insecurity. If not, even if this Hamas is dismantled, its ideology will remain, and if it's not abandoned or eradicated, plans will remain dreams, dreams will be crushed, and the harsh and unforgiving reality will perpetuate, and it will be, unfortunately, only a matter of time until the next tragedy unfolds.
Levanta la sesión.